Hello and welcome to the Higher Learning Exchange podcast, a space for innovators to push the boundaries of education practice and technology. Hello and welcome. I am Carmen Tomas, your host today, and I am joined today by a very special guest, Bisila Bokoko. Bisila, thanks for being here today.
I am super happy. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know her, Bisila has a very eclectic career. She's got a long list of achievements across the world of business, charity. You're now a public speaker for now over a decade. And to top it all up, you've just published a book where you share all this wealth of experience and knowledge across, all these areas, basically. So, Bisila, in your work, I can see you are really on a mission to help others succeed. And obviously, this is a mission that I think any educational organization will share with you. So I really wanted to get your insights into what is success.
I love that question. And there is not that simple answer, actually, for that question. I could just tell you my own definition of success. For me, success is really freedom. It's the freedom to make the choices to be where you want to be, doing what you like to do with the people who you want to do. Because I think that we define success based in results in the current educational system. And since we are really little, our success is only connected with the results. And that brings so much frustration for a lot of people and can have a very disengaged relationship with success. And that's the reason why a lot of people, they not see success with happiness. They might feel successful, but they don't feel happy. So for me, it's freedom, because when you are able to do what you love and you use your time doing something that you really want to do, that's from my perspective success. And then it's when you really could feel that your time and the results that you have with the time that you put doing what you like to do is matching the interest. And that's really what is going to get you out of the bed every morning.
Okay.
That sense of freedom.
Okay. Thank you, Bisila. I love that definition of success. And I think we'll get on later on to how can universities touch on this area. But we'll get onto that later. I know, Bisila, you also work with many businesses, so you're also very well connected to the business world. And this is something that is very important to, to any educational organization, because our duty is to really match the skills and help learners develop these skills. So what can you share with us in terms of what you're observing, as in what skills, do you think we need? Well, I'm thinking of recent graduates and learners in formal context, but, obviously more broadly anyone. But what are the skills that are required to succeed in nowadays very changing and very demanding world?
Well, I have a very clear picture about what businesses need, because I'm a business person by myself. And I've been helping always corporations to go further in their businesses. And I think creativity is the number one skill that I think is very important to really implement in the children, and critical thinking. And I think that a lot of the things that really make me a little bit frustrated is that the educational system still is really based in getting information. But what do you do with so much information? I remember when I finished college, I was terrified to go into the business world because I don't know what to do with so much information. I spent 6 years studying. I did 2 degrees at the same time, and I did economics and law. And then when they just threw me in the wall and tell me, okay, go and find a job, what should I do with this information? And I feel that a lot of people have still the same fear.
Yeah.
I graduated 25 or 26 years ago, and I speak with recent graduates and I interview many people for my businesses, and I still feel that they have the same issue. So I really believe in a world that is so changeable, that we live in uncertainty times, emotional intelligence, creativity, and rational thinking is the three. There is more skills, but I will say that this is the skills that you could not miss.
Okay.
Because now that we go into this era of technology, is when more important is the social and emotional skills. So if you don't have emotional intelligence, you're not going to make it. Really being with humans, because we see that we are in a world that people is more connected to the machine and the phones. And I think that if you're not really able to connect with others, and creativity, why creativity? Because we need to create a new world every single day. And we need to really reinvent ourselves in our jobs every single day. So if you don't have that capability to create, and I'm not meaning only artistic creation, creativity is much more than that. Our brain has to be trained to create from nothing something. And obviously critical thinking, because the information that get to us, and when we do strategies to see how we can move forward in such a rapid base, it is very important to really see what I do with this information. You have to have a library in your head, but see for what I need this. So I think this is important.
Thank you. And something like emotional intelligence, creativity, these things might sound just really abstract to many, many people. I mean, I know I relate to them in my own way. And I've been wondering often, and obviously since I've become acquainted with your work, and obviously coming from the educational world myself, obviously my question is, can you teach these skills? Could you teach people at a young age, for example, or do you need, just experience sometimes, and this is something I'm debating.
I think you can definitely teach these things ever since you are a very small kid. Of course, life is going to teach you by experiences. But I think also how many things we really learn from others. And a lot of things, you don't need to have the experience to understand that something hurts. You don't really need that. But I think if you are able to really manage what is coming later in your life, you will be able to manage crisis much better if you have the tools. Most of us, we had to get into these tools by need, because you were so fed up with the situations that you have to encounter in life. You were in a moment that you need to see what is my new direction, and you were lost. And in these cases, you start to work on yourself. You start really to go into the inner job. But if you start since early age to really people be connected with their own emotions, to put a name on them, to really see how you can experience. And also that teach you empathy, because then you would understand others in a much better way. And I think that's something that we're missing in the current system. We don't put the effort in personal development. We teach in leadership, but what is leadership? I see so many leadership programs, but they're not speaking about self-leadership, about self-knowledge. And the best job that you could do for yourself is to know yourself. And this comes much later in life. Why we have to be in the 40 years crisis in order to experience that?
Like most of us, yeah?
Exactly.
Well, that's amazing. I think this leads very nicely to the next the next question I have for you, which is, I noticed in your book and all your work, there is this nexus between the person and then the profession. And actually reading your book, like you could not tell those two apart, basically, and I find that very unusual. Like most people might write a book just about their professional, career, but you really do a very good job in just revealing the two, as they're connected. So, but I want to ask you, so why does this matter? Why does this connection of the personal and the professional, why does it matter? Because clearly you have it all worked out.
I think that we grow up thinking that we have a personal life and a professional life, right? And actually we have different costumes I put my face of very serious person to go to work. And then after with my friends or my family, I could be this way. I could be vulnerable. I could be myself. So I realized that this kind of disconnection really is going to take a lot of you. And I don't believe that you could separate your professional life from your personal life. You are one person. And you cannot have so many masks in the world. Okay, I'm going to use this mask to deal with my work, and I'm going to use this mask to deal with my friends, and I'm going to use this mask to deal with my own life. And I think that this really takes so much energy out of you.
It's a load.
It's a load. And I think that for me, we have to simplify. If you realize that your personal brand is you, and that personal brand has to be in alignment with the brand that you're working for. So if you work in a university, that values has to be in alignment with yours. And in this case, it's going to be so much easier because a lot of people is like, oh, I don't really care that much about the mission that my company has or the vision, but I just want a paycheck because I have a mortgage. And this is the story that everybody will tell ourselves, because I have a mortgage, because I have bills to pay. I have to disassociate myself from my work and just create two different people. And that means that at the end of the day, you are depleted of energy because you need to pretend all day just to get a paycheck. And if we keep doing that and we transfer that to the new generations, I think it's going to be really, that's the reason why also we are in a crisis of mental health crisis.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. So I mean, and you're no stranger to educational settings. Like, I know you cross many boundaries in many worlds. I know that you're familiar with also educational organizations. And what would be your advice? So to help take this load off at a point where students, we know the mental health crisis is on the rise, it's not getting any better. So what advice would you give from your experience?
The first advice I would give is to stop complaining about the new generations, because we always complain about the new generations, but who are the parents of these generations? I think they have parents, right? And I think they have teachers and they have institutions. So always be saying, oh, the new generation, they don't want to work. They don't know what they're doing. They are lost. And who are the guidance for these people? I believe that they didn't come like plants to this world, right? So in this case, I think it's a responsibility for all of us to really take care of the next generations, to think about them. And I think that we definitely have to make sure that we provide them with the tools to lead in this world, because that's what the education system is supposed to provide for all of us, is the tools to manage the world that is coming. So it's not only provide education that we pay a huge amount of money for information. It's only really know how to manage these tools. And if you don't know how to manage your mental health working with others, this is the reason why people get burned out all the time. They really don't want to continue in this work. They don't commit themselves. You have to really implement that sense of commitment. And this is a joint venture between your home and the school system. So I believe that we have to take responsibility and stop complaining about the system, because it's a joint effort. We have to see where do we want to go and how would we want to teach the new generations for this 21st century. Maybe it's time to make some changes. And I think that the biggest change we have to do is to start implementing personal development tools. So people really could manage themselves, their mental health. They could be strong because they need to be strong for the world is coming.
Okay. So do you have any other, so you're talking about personal development, which again is kind of like a side thing, it doesn't really come too much as part of when you go to a university or a school, in some places I know they're starting, but really those are really very, very small pockets, I would say. It's definitely not widely spread. So if we could imagine for example, there is also a lot of talk about the learner-centered education, something that has really not been realized at all yet, or achieved anywhere. So can you help us to imagine? So you're talking about personal development. Do you have a dream? Could you share a kind of a dream or a vision about how these learner-centered, student-centered institutions of education, might look like? What would they be doing? What do you imagine?
The first people who have to really work on themselves is the leaders of these institutions. I think is the first step. The teachers, they only do their jobs. Sometimes themselves, they're not motivated. I also believe that the economic system, they don't really give them what they need for them to be extremely motivated. And I think this whole system is so corrupt inside. I could afford to speak plainly. And I do believe that if the first people who are the leaders of the institutions, they're not really emotionally intelligent, how we expect that these teachers provide them with these tools to the students. So the whole system has to reinvent themselves. And we need really humanistic leaders, people who really are human oriented, that they're not only results oriented. Most of the school systems, they also have to be result oriented. A lot of the leaders, they want to do the numbers. So in reality, they're really managing the schools like an enterprise. And in reality, if we do that, this is exactly what we're getting in return. So my idea would be to have a more Socratic system where it's really based in asking yourself the right questions and really have the people to develop the whole potential. And I think it has to be in that kind of freedom. And the teachers have to feel that they're doing a mission that is so beautiful. Sometimes here and there, you can find somebody who really, really has this passion for teaching, and they give the students the best. A teacher could really build your life up or destroy your life. They have that power. So in this case, we could not have just anyone teaching. They really have to have a passion for that. And it could not be a transactional relationship. And that's also the reason why I believe that the leaders of the educational have to have a mission. They have to be in the mission of giving light, guidance for these people to become the people who we want to see in society.
I think I couldn't agree more that you cannot give what you don't have. I think that sums it up very well. And that already would be a massive task. Do you have any ideas as to what might it look like? And you've got children that have gone through the entire education system. How could it be different?
I really am a big fan of the Jesuit system, actually. And I choose that education for my children. And I have seen them that it was really based in values and service. And we all here in service. And I think that has to be the core of the education, because whatever you do in life is for service to others. You can be an architect, you can be a doctor, you could be an artist, but you're going to be in service for others. So I think when you have these values very well, it helps. Another thing that I think is super important is to really implement the love for reading in young age to the children. I think reading is a really life changer. And I think right now, even subjects like philosophy, I heard that in some school systems in Spain, they have been taking away philosophy, for example. And I think that to read philosophy is super important for the children. I think the classics is very important. And you might think that they only need to know about technology and robotics, but I think if we want these machines, if we want this artificial intelligence to be ethical, how you could not really teach people philosophy and ethics? I think that we're missing the whole point. So I believe that if I could dream, I will have a system where it really integrates so well the classics. To understand what is thinking and the values that a person should have, how you build up yourself like a person to serve in the world. And then you can choose and you can explore. And I also believe that exploring in young age is really good, because sometimes the kids are going through so much pressure to get information in 3 to 4 years. But I think that we should help them to be more cross subjects.
So, Bisila, there is so much in your book I'd love to talk about, but unfortunately time is limited. So I'd like to ask you the final question. And in your book and in your work, you do give a lot of advice, but also I think something that I find you do very well, and you've thought long and hard, is about what questions to ask. And I'd like to place your expertise in the context of thinking about our graduates. There are many educational organizations they're sending graduates into the world, what do you think the 3 most important questions that we should ask those graduates before they graduate?
I think the first question is how they see their future self. The question that we have to always answer is who I am. But who you want to be, it's important to describe who you want to be. The second question would be, how would be a typical day in your life? Because a lot of people study something, but they don't realize how will be their typical day. So you say, okay, I want to be a doctor, I want to help people, or I want to be an architect, I do homes, but how your typical day will go. So I think it's important to also ask these questions. And also, what kind of habits I need to implement today to become that person? Because your job is only a part of you. I think it's very important that we also realize what kind of person I'm building up, who I am. So I think if you are able to see that future self, so your lifestyle, and when you know that it's like an investment banking. If you don't have these habits, you will never be that person in the future. So everything is in alignment.
Fantastic. Well, Bisila, thank you so much. I'm thrilled that you could spend time today talking about education and transferring, your knowledge and wisdom to this area. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the questions. I think they were great questions, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.